Hey, what's up guys? So let's take a look at the two new parking recording modes that are available here in this new Viofo A329 series of dash cams. The first parking recording mode is going to be a low power impact detection mode, which is going to give us much longer parking record time. And so instead of the dash cam recording for less than a day, it's now going to be able to record for well over a week. Second, we also have a new hybrid parking recording option, which is going to combine both your traditional high power draw parking recording modes and this new low power parking recording mode. So initially you get the added coverage of your traditional parking recording mode, and then once the battery starts to drain and get low, instead of just shutting the dash cam off altogether and getting no more protection for your car, instead it's going to switch on over to the low power impact detection and again give you extended parking recording coverage after the traditional parking recording is done. And so in this video, let's take a closer look as far as how all this works. We're going to dive into all these new features and capabilities built into the dash cam here. We're going to go ahead and test it out to see how all this stuff works. We're going to take a look at how much power the different dash cam parking recording modes draw and how long they can actually record in these different modes. We'll take a look at the pros and cons of all these different modes and ultimately help you decide if this is going to be an important feature if you want to pick up one of these new dash cams as well. And if so, then well, which dashcam parking recording mode should you use on your new A329 series? And so with that said, let's dive right into it. Now, diving right into things, let's take a look at all the different parking recording options available here in the dash cam. We're going to start here first with parking mode. So we've got a number of different parking recording modes here. We can have parking recording off if we want. The two new options here are going to be our hybrid parking recording and our low power impact detection. But before we dive into those, let's take a look at the traditional ones that we've had now for quite a while here on the VFOs. So first up, we've got a number of different time-lapse parking recording modes. And this is basically going to give us a video time-lapse, video only, no audio, and allow us to record everything going on around our car, regardless of what's happening. And then to customize the time-lapse capabilities, you can see we can choose the frame rate here. So we can have 10 FPS, which gives us a lot more coverage, or we can go all the way down here to 1 FPS like this, which is going to record less, but take up less space on our memory card. We also do have a night vision mode here, which is going to give us better low light sensitivity and also give us reduced power draw. So it's not going to put as much stress on the car battery and actually allow us to record for a longer period of time than the traditional parking recording mode. We've also got the low bitrate parking recording mode. This is going to be giving us continuous parking recording the whole time while we're parked. And it's going to be recording both video and audio. And to save space on your memory card, it's going to be reducing the bit rate, reducing the video quality so it doesn't completely fill up your memory card while you've got the dash cam parked for hours. We also have the auto event detection mode. This is a popular recording mode because it's going to be giving you buffered motion detection and impact detection. Essentially, the idea is the dash cam is going to be recording continuously the whole time at full video quality. And then in case anything happens, like somebody's walking by your car to key your car, or a person's driving by your car and maybe hits your car in a hit and run, this is going to be recording everything continuously, allowing you to record before, during, and after any events that happen around your vehicle. Again, this does mean that it's going to be drawing more power because the dash cam is going to be on and recording continuously. And so for that reason, if you want to save power, you can now use one of the new parking recording options. So for example, we've got the low power impact detection. This is basically going to put the dash cam to sleep and it's not going to be recording continuously. And then in case it detects an impact, it's actually going to wake up the dash cam and start recording about 2 seconds after the impact is detected. And 2 seconds is actually pretty good. There's other dash cams that also have these low power energy saving parking recording modes. For example, if you compare it to something like the Thinkware U3000 that also has a similar option, that also takes a little under 2 seconds for the dash cam to wake up when it senses an impact and begin recording. And to put this into context, there's also dash cams like the Vantru E1 Pro that has a quick start impact detection. It's also non-buffered parking recording. And this mode has similar wake up record times where it takes a little under 2 seconds for it to wake up and begin recording. However, if you put it into the low power mode, similar to what we're looking at here with the VFO and the Thinkware, it can actually take something like 13 to 15 seconds to wake up and begin recording, which is kind of useless in my opinion. And so for that reason, something that only takes about 2 seconds here is actually really good. And so this new option here in the VFO is way better in this regard. Now, we also have an option here that's going to be the hybrid parking recording mode. And if we take a look at that, you can see we've got a number of different parking recording options. So we can have it initially record at time-lapse in 1 FPS, or continuous low bitrate parking recording mode, or our auto event detection for our buffered motion and impact detection. Then after a certain point, it'll actually switch on over to the low power impact detection to give us extended parking recording instead of just shutting off altogether. Now, the way this works, we've got a couple different ways to trigger this transition here. If we go back, we can take a look here at the vehicle battery protection option. Now, one option is to use the cutoff time. We basically say at what point does the dash cam actually switch over from traditional parking recording to the low power impact detection. And so you can have it just turned off altogether, or you can go anywhere from 30 minutes all the way to 48 hours. Now, chances are your dash cam's not going to last 2 days with one of the traditional parking recording modes. Personally, I normally park for maybe 8 hours max or so if, the car is parked while we're out at a restaurant or while we're at work or something. So I'll set it there, and then I like to go down here to the parking recording mode and set it to something like hybrid parking recording, and then maybe impact detection. So I've got my buffered motion and impact detection, and then after 8 hours, it's going to switch over to the low power parking recording mode. So we're going to set it that way. But we also have a second way now to switch the dash cam over. So instead of switching based on the timer, instead we can switch by the voltage. However, currently I'm not able to use that option because of the fact that I've got it set up here with the older HK4 parking recording cable. This cable does not pass any voltage information over to the dash cam, and so for that reason, you actually have to wait until they release the new HK6 parking recording cable, which I'm going to be covering here shortly, and that will actually pass the voltage information over to the dash cam, so it can now switch at a certain point when the voltage drops below a preset level and switch it over from traditional parking recording to low power parking recording. And this I could see being pretty useful if you've got it hooked up to your car battery and you're really concerned about, not draining your car battery too far because you want to make sure that you can actually start your car next time you start driving. However, because I've got it hooked up to a dedicated dashcam battery pack in my vehicle, I'm not as concerned about the voltage cutoffs. I just look more at the time. And so I'm going to be using the timer option here with my A329s. And with this low power parking recording mode, well, how low power is it? How much less power does it draw than a traditional parking recording mode? And how much longer does it actually let us record? Well, to test it out, I used just a dashcam battery pack. It's the 96 watt hour 70 mAh battery, same capacity as all the other ones. And to do all my measurements, a special shout out to Retro Car Guy 530. He helped me build a setup similar to what he does, where he puts an ammeter in line to actually monitor and measure the exact power draw that the dashcam is pulling in these various parking recording modes. Then we can do a little bit of math here and convert the power draw numbers to estimated parking record times. And this, I think, gives us much more useful data here looking at this dash cam. Now, something that's worth noticing here is the HK4 parking mode cable will not allow you to fully drain the dashcam battery pack, because even with the voltage cutoff switch set to the lowest setting, it will actually shut off the dashcam before the battery pack is fully drained. For that reason, I did a quick test with the dashcam set to the low bit rate continuous parking recording option. And in practice, I got just under 16 hours of parking record time, which is a little bit less than the estimated parking record time of a little over 17 hours. It was about 92% of my estimated numbers. And so for that reason, I kind of just did an offset for all of these numbers here. And if we assume a similar cutoff here for all the different parking recording options, as you can see, a 3-channel dash cam will last anywhere from like 12-ish to 17, 18 hours or so, depending on the parking recording mode and whatnot. The time-lapse 1 FPS option, as you can see, is going to allow us to actually record over a day because it's going to be the most efficient parking record option, at least as far as the traditional record options. Now, if we take a look at the new low-power parking recording mode, on the other hand, this requires just a fraction of the amount of power, which means that instead of recording for maybe a day or so, probably less, you're going to get parking record times closer to 9 days or so. And so for that reason, if you need extended parking record capability and you're okay with losing the buffered parking recording aspect, well, you can use the low power parking recording feature to give you that much longer parking record time, or you can just use the hybrid parking recording option to get your traditional parking recording, and then instead of just shutting off the dash cam when the battery gets low, switch over to the low power parking recording mode, and maybe you won't get the full 9 days because you've already used some of the battery, but you're going to be able to kind of get the best of both worlds with your traditional parking recording initially, and then the extended low power long-term parking recording as well. Now, something else I also wanted to test is the new G-sensor chipset that they've installed here in the A329S TWW line. And this is specifically going to be helpful because I had an experience with the original A329 where my car was hit while it was parked, and the A329 did not actually lock that video even though it was set to the highest G-sensor option. Now, I was eventually able to find the clip, thank goodness, and get the video of the entire event. To do so, I had the dashcam set in the auto event detection mode, which gave me the motion detection and impact detection. Because the G-sensor didn't actually lock when they hit the side of the car and the impact occurred, I had to manually go through and look at all of the different video clips on the dashcam's memory card and hope that it didn't get overwritten or something. And eventually I was just looking at all the motion detection clips, and I wound up finding the clip where a truck that was trying to park next to us wound up hitting our car. And so for that reason, I've been really excited about the improved sensitivity on the newer A329S and T line of dashcams, and I went out to test that as well. And to test it, I put both the original A329 and the newer variant on the windshield, and then I just went out and kind of whacked the car on the side. I did this test here a couple times with different strength levels and whatnot, but unfortunately, both the original A329 and the new A329T missed every single impact, despite the fact that both of the dash cams were set to the highest G-sensor setting for the parking mode impact detection. Now, to be fair though, I wasn't really hitting the car all that hard, so this was a pretty tough test. However, the Vantrue E1 Pro that I also happened to have on the windshield at the time did manage to detect some of these impacts and wake up and begin recording. Not all of them, but it did actually capture some that the VFOs had missed. Now, I reported this to VFO of like, hey, I'm still missing these impacts. And they said, well, with the 2 units that they sent me for test and review, they're not sure if these units have the upgraded chipset or not. Some of the earlier development units had the original G-sensor chip, and so they're not sure as far as when these units went out. So unfortunately, I don't have any feedback available to say that yes, it's definitively better than before, but at least based on my testing, I haven't seen any improvements. But in theory, there should at least be some improvements with the newer models having a higher sensitivity for the G-sensor in parking recording mode. So now that we're familiar here with the low power impact detection recording mode and the new hybrid parking recording mode, let's also quickly just take a look at the different parking recording options that are also available here. So we've got the enter parking mode timer. This can basically allow us to choose if the dash cam is going to switch to parking recording mode immediately when we turn off the car, or if it's going to wait 90 seconds before it enters parking recording mode. And this can be helpful. So when you exit the car, for example, and you close the door, that impact kind of being detected by the dash cam doesn't automatically lock that video file and trigger a parking recording clip. We also have, speaking of impacts, the G sensor here for the parking recording mode. And this is basically going to allow us to choose, how strong of an impact the dash cam is going to require in order for it to trigger the parking recording mode and save and protect that video clip. We've also got the parking motion detection. So similarly, if you're using one of the buffered parking recording modes like auto event detection, how much motion is going to be required to trigger a motion detection clip. Something to be aware of if you're running the A329T with its telephoto lens, that's going to be picking up cars that are farther away and not actually a threat or anything. And so you are going to be getting more motion detection clips if you're running the A329T than you would otherwise. So just something to be aware of. Next, we've got the parking GPS feature. So most people, to save power, want the GPS turned off so the dashcam can record longer when parked. If you want it turned on, so in case your car gets stolen or gets towed or something, you can have it still recording GPS. But for most people, you can just leave it off. HDR, you can have that on or off for parking recording mode too. And then we also have the option to choose where the parking recording files are going to be stored. Now, for your traditional parking recording modes, if you've got an SSD drive plugged into the USB port here on the side of the dash cam, you can choose if you have the parking mode clips recorded onto the micro SD card here in the dash cam or that SSD drive. However, because it takes additional power to power that SSD, if you're using one of the low power parking recording modes, then you're only going to be able to have it record to the micro SD card. And lastly, I've also come across an issue in parking recording mode where these dash cams can actually turn parking recording mode off on their own without you realizing that, well, you now no longer have any coverage for parking recording mode. And it has to do with this weird quirk with it not being able to detect the parking recording cables if you plug the dash cam back in while the car is turned off. And to better understand what the issue is and when it happens, let me walk you through it here. So I've currently got the dash cam just plugged into the cigarette lighter cable here. And for that reason, when I go into the parking recording modes, you can see there is no hybrid option and there is no low power parking recording option. I can scroll through all the different options, and all I have right now are all the traditional parking recording modes. If I want to have the new options show up, I do have to have a parking recording cable. And now that I've got it hardwired here with an HK4 parking mode cable, when I go into the parking recording mode options, now you're going to be able to see that I've got the two new options that show up here. We've got the hybrid parking recording and the low power impact detection. And so we can select it just like that. Now, a quick note, in order to use the hybrid parking recording, you may get an error where it says, please set the vehicle battery protection setting. If you see that, that means you do have to go over here to the battery protection and choose one of these options, because I have the HK4. The HK6 option is not going to work yet. So I'm just going to go here, and as I mentioned before, I set it to like 8 hours or something. Now, when that is turned on, that's going to be the threshold as far as the hybrid parking recording option when it's going to actually do the transition. So now when I select it, it's going to work. But either way, in order to be able to access this kind of stuff, you do need to have a hardwired parking mode cable. Now, as long as everything is powered on here like this, it's going to be just fine. And the idea is, like, let's say maybe you're done driving, right? You want to pull the dash cam off, and you want to maybe grab the memory card out of the dash cam, pull some of the footage, and then once you're done, put the card back in, and then put the dash cam back on the mount. Now it's going to boot up, and everything is going to be just fine here. And to confirm, if we go back here into the settings, when we go to parking recording mode, you can see that it's still set to the hybrid parking recording option, just like we had set it to before. Awesome. Now the issue is, what happens if the car is turned off because the car is parked, which most likely it is, and you repeat that same process. This is usually when maybe your car is like, parked in the garage or something, and you're like, oh, I wanted to grab that memory card. I'm going to pop the dash cam off the mount here real quick to turn it off. I want to make sure I'm not corrupting any of the video, so I want the dash cam to turn off. I'll again pull out the memory card, put it on my computer, grab the footage. When I'm done, put this back in, and then I just slide it back onto the mount like this while the car is still off, still sitting in the garage. Now the dash cam is going to go ahead and turn itself back on because it still has power from your battery or something. However, the car is not in driving mode, it's in parking mode. And when this happens, it's not going to be able to properly recognize this HK4 parking mode cable. Now, when I go over here into the parking recording mode, look at that. Parking recording mode has turned off. And again, the reason that can happen is if you put the dash cam back on the mount and power it back up while the car is still parked, it's not properly going to be able to sense this HK4 cable. And so it's just going to default to just turning power or parking mode back off. It's not going to stay in the parking recording mode that you'd set it to previously. Now, there are a couple workarounds to this if you want to make sure that parking recording mode is always going to work. Number one, whenever you put the dash cam back on the mount and fire it back up or something, make sure you turn the car on first so that this has power and the dash cam can properly read it. If you forget to do it and you put this back on and let it power up, it's going to turn parking recording mode back off, which is really annoying. Another workaround is just to not use one of these new modes. Remember how these other parking recording options will show up even if it's not detecting this cable? So if you set it in something like auto event detection or low bitrate or whatever, this will allow it to always, wake back up and keep parking recording enabled, even if it's not detecting the cable here, because these show up for whatever reason, unlike those parking recording modes, even if the cable is not present. I would love to see Viofo actually leave these options here enabled, even if it's not detecting the parking mode cable. That way it doesn't just realize oh, hey, look at that, I can't detect the cable. I'm going to lose these parking recording modes, and I'm just going to default to turning off parking recording for you. And all of a sudden, after you've pulled the memory card and put the dash cam back on, it shut parking mode off on you. This is a really annoying little quirk. And so I would love to see Viofo actually solve this and allow us to use one of these parking recording modes without having to jump through hoops of making sure we always, power on the car first or double check any of this kind of stuff here, because I really don't want my dash cam turning parking mode off on itself, because I really want the dash cam to work in parking recording mode. That's one of the main reasons I bought it. So that's definitely an annoying quirk here with parking recording mode. And so yeah, that's a look at the new parking recording capabilities here on the new A329 series of dash cams. To summarize, we've got the new low power impact detection, which gives us non-buffered impact detection. The dash cam will typically be asleep, and then 2 seconds after it detects an impact, it'll wake up and begin recording. The benefit of this is that instead of getting maybe 12 to 18-ish hours of parking record time, we can now get closer to 8 or 9 days, which is significantly longer. And so this is going to be a great option for, parking over a long weekend, or maybe you're parked at the airport or something while you're off on a trip. Additionally, we also have a new hybrid parking recording option, which combines traditional parking recording with the low power impact detection. So if you want something like your, buffered motion and impact detection or continuous low bitrate or something, and then as the battery starts to drop a little bit, instead of just turning the dash cam off altogether, you can just continue recording with the low power state. We now have that option available here too, and that's also a really nice feature. However, there is this weird kind of issue where it can automatically turn off parking recording mode if you go to pull the memory card out of the dash cam and then put it back in while the car is still parked. It's not always going to be reading the hardwire cable properly, so to fix that, you're going to want to make sure you turn the car on and have the engine running before the dash cam powers on. Otherwise, it'll actually turn parking mode off on itself, potentially without you realizing it, which is not good. I'd love to see them improve that. I don't know if it's something they can change with the software update, but I hope so. Additionally, they've made a hardware change with the G sensor. It's now more sensitive, which is going to be helpful with the parking recording impacts, because I've had some experiences where the G sensor in the previous A329 has actually missed detecting a hit and run on the car. And so I'm hoping that the new one is going to be better. Again, I've tested it, but I'm not sure that the review units that I have here actually have the new G sensor or not, so I haven't been able to verify that. But it is definitely a nice change, the fact that they've improved the sensitivity of the G sensor here, which is going to be useful if you've got the dash cam, detecting impacts in parking recording mode. So overall, I think there's just some nice improvements. There's maybe some more tweaks that could be made here, but having this option for extended parking recording capability, I think is a really big benefit. It's a very useful feature. I would sometimes even grab a separate dash cam to run alongside my VFO when I've got it parked on a longer trip, just to get that longer term parking recording that previously the VFOs were not able to do, but now they do have that capability. And I think that's actually a really nice option to have available when needed. And so these options are going to be available in all of the new A329 series of dash cams, so 329S, T, WW, etc. And down in the description, I'm going to put a list of all of the different dash cams that support this new feature here, right alongside the list of all the different videos that I'm doing here on this new line of dash cams. And so if you're interested in picking one of those up, you can go ahead and order one now as well. That said, stay tuned for, I think we've only got a few videos left here in this series talking about these dash cams, now that we've kind of covered most of them, and then getting to like the final overall review as well. So let's keep going. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you're all doing great. I'll see you in the next one.